Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network. That's right. It's time for the next installment of Cult Corner, but also here on the Spook Show, Sucky Summer. I'm Josh, and I'm joined here with Donnie.
Yo.
Tiana.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
I thought we lost Tiana there for a second.
She was just getting to the chair.
Yeah, the song was too long, and I thought maybe she'd pass out or something. Yeah, that's right. We're keeping the Cult Corner train rolling here for the Spook Show Sucky Summer. If you haven't been listening the last couple of weeks, the whole theme of the summer this year, every year we always have a theme. This year we decided to go with vampires. So we're watching vampire movies all summer long, not only here on the podcast, but also over on our YouTube series, Grindhouse Gutter and Video Vortex, and of course over on Patreon, patreon.com/spookshow. We're involving Crapster Piece Theater into this mess. So all across the board, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube or checking it out over on Patreon and becoming a patron, vampires are everywhere. They're loose this summer. So the summer sucks for at least two different reasons here on the Spook Show. So that's where we stand so far. What are you guys thinking so far, Donnie, of everything? I forget whether you weren't even here for the beginning, right? You weren't here for Life
No,
Force
man. No, I missed it. Yeah, I missed the opening. Yeah, I hate that I missed it, but glad to be here. For Cult Corner at least.
You gave us your rating on Bliss.
Yes.
Yeah, and Life Force. So what did you, I guess we can give you a moment here just real quick to start off. What did you think of Life Force that kicked it off in Cannon Fodder? You gave it three cannonballs, but what did you think? Yeah.
So, I would have liked to seen a little more of the, kind of dried up raisin bodies that was, kind of similar to Return of the Living Dead. But, overall, it actually wasn't too bad, but to me, it wasn't enough. It didn't hit everything for me, but the practical effects, always increases my rating. So yeah, that's what I went with.
It definitely, we mentioned it during that show. It definitely didn't feel like a Cannon movie in a lot of ways, did it?
No. I
mean, it was good. It was solid. And it looks great.
Yeah,
it didn't feel like a Cannon movie. It's kind of, and for the good and the bad of that, is what I mean.
I just couldn't go higher than 3. For that. And then most of that rating is because of the practical effects.
And then last week we watched Bliss. That was Tiana's choice. So you gave a score of 3.25 stars on that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a kind of a neat idea. Kind of weird saying neat, but
it was neato.
No, but it's kind of neato.
I was just thinking about putting the O on the end of it. That was a quality going to the neat.
Yeah.
It was interesting, man. I would say it's kind of similar in kind of gore with almost kind of Deathgasm a little bit.
In certain parts, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I did. That's always gonna raise the rating for me as well. Even if I didn't like the movie as much, but this one was solid through and through.
Well, I mean, I will say this: we have started off everything, at least as far as on the podcast proper here for the Sucky Summer, with a couple of interesting flicks, something different than you would expect from a vampire theme, because we watched Life Force, and that's basically what Soul Suckers, right? Essentially. However you want to classify those things.
Alien vampire soul suckers? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, what did Austin call them? Sex vampires that suck energy or something? Then you've got, last week when we watched Bliss, you've got something that doesn't feel like a vampire movie until all of a sudden it's a vampire movie, right? So that's different in a lot of ways. And then some of the tropes in both those movies too aren't in play. Like, they change stuff around a little bit, as far as like what you think of vampire movies, garlic crosses, steaks, all that stuff, right? Well, I think we keep it up this week with some interesting choices here. The latest in Cult Corner. And also I'll add, usually during Cult Corner, we stay away from horror movies. That's kind of one of the points of Cult Corner. But since we decided to bring it into the Sucky Summer, we kind of have to do it. So I think you kind of get both with this one, though, right? And we're talking about Near Dark from 1987. So I think you get a good taste of the cult here for sure, but you also get the horror element of vampires and everything. Or do we? I guess that's the question, because, spoiler alert, I don't think they ever say the word vampire in this movie, do they?
They don't.
Nope. No, I guess they're kind of going with like Romero and the zombie thing. Like, he never had anybody say the word zombie.
Yeah.
So I guess they didn't want to name it,
So it's interesting, and we'll get into it. So before we do all that, we want to remind you to go check out aaspookshow.com. We call that the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can go check out all of our past podcast archives. You can also get to our YouTube channel from there, where every month we have Video Vortex, Grindhouse Gutter, Hammer Horror in Order, which is a series that won't be a part of the Sucky Summer, but it continues on in its chronological viewing of the Hammer Films library. Also, podcast episodes are uploaded there. As well, you can get to our Patreon from aaspookshow.com, which you can also go there from patreon.com/aaspookshow. Become a patron. I think for at least $3 a month, you'll be getting some bonus video minisodes. You'll also be getting every month Crapster Piece Theater, which, every month we put out a poll. We throw up 4 turds on the wall. You guys vote which one sticks, and then we have to suffer through that. That's only an exclusive to becoming a patron. So check everything out over at aaspookshow.com. So I guess that's enough build up. We'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for Near Dark.
Separate your head from your shoulders.
Do it fast.
All right.
The time's roll. No! You might as well just kill me then, too.
Caleb Colton no longer belongs to our world.
We give him a week, see if we can call him one of us.
He belongs to hers.
But you have to learn to kill.
He belongs to theirs.
I don't want to kill.
He makes you kill tonight.
And they all belong to the night.
It's $3 short for a bus ticket home. You help me out?
What are you on?
Believe me, I told you.
Just don't think of it as killing. Evening. Don't think at all. It's just something that you do night after night. It's only ever a question of how.
You nervous? I would be too if I were you. Near Dark.
Two of your boys fall in with control. Check out time.
Bought yourself some time, son.
God damn, this is my family. Let him go.
Near Dark. Pray for daylight. The night has its price.
All right, there you go. That's the trailer for that. So I guess we'll kind of go around the table like we usually do here right off the top. Donnie, what's your? Have you ever seen Near Dark before?
Oh yeah. Actually, was it? This was. I want to say that I ran across this. Actually, I do remember this. I ran across this one randomly at Blockbuster one night. I was like, this looks interesting. And gosh, it was the mid '90s though. Like it wasn't, at any time soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did.
I
did run across.
I'm
this
basically the same exact way. Like I've seen this before, and probably it was a movie rental, off the shelf back in the day. But it's been like mid to late '90s. It's been a long time. Tiana, what about you?
This was only my second time seeing it. Brian was actually the one that introduced me to it the first time because I didn't even know about it. Because Lost Boys kind of overshadowed it.
Smoke, I bet you've had a lot of fun like introducing her to stuff she hasn't seen, right? Like, you like that? Well, let me open up the 10th level of hell for you.
I used to do that to my friends back in high school too. Only they probably saw a lot of stuff they didn't want to see, like Dr. Butcher MD or Make Them Die Slowly, etc. but no, yeah, Near Dark. I remember reading about it probably around the time Lost Boys was coming out, so it was on my radar, but it wasn't in theaters. I had to wait for it to come to video. It's probably an article in Fangoria, maybe not a full article, but one of a spotlight on different movies, whatever section of Fangoria was talking about it being sort of almost the antithesis. I mean, similar to Lost Boys, but sort of the antithesis of Lost Boys is like a dive straight into the 80s. It's very much an MTV style, fast paced editing type vampire movie. And I remember them talking about Near Dark being similar in like different, taking the vampires out of the gothic stuff and putting them in like contemporary times. Only they didn't lean into the 80s the way Lost Boys did. They kind of pulled back and went with a sort of neo-Western vibe going on with it. So it definitely piqued my interest. And then when it came out on video, I saw it and I enjoyed it from that point on. Now, going back and forth, whether back then there was like people that liked Lost Boys better or the people like Near Dark better. I mean, they were kind of on the same level for me, and we'll get to ratings, of course, when we get to the end of this. But they were very just similar to me because they both came out in the 80s. Actually, the same year almost. I mean, if you count festivals, right?
Yeah.
It came out in whatever. I know you have the information there on the first festival, maybe it hit in 87, but Lost Boys came out in the theaters before it hit the festivals, I believe, right?
Yeah. Lost Boys came out in July of 87, and this kind of didn't hit the festivals in September of 87. Near Dark did. And then I don't think it got any kind of release until October of 87, so it's closer to Halloween. But probably didn't. There's probably not much crossover there because I would imagine Lost Boys was probably out of the rotation by the time this came out. But I could definitely see, and I wasn't up on this type of stuff when I was in 1987. I was only 7 years old, but I could definitely see this being like you got the Lost Boys being the MTV poppy crowd versus the Near Dark being kind of like. Not necessarily anti-MTV, but like the opposite of that, like the more underground feeling movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you said, Lost Boys fully embraces the 80s, the time period it was of. And whereas the, Near Dark kind of goes for almost a timelessness. I mean, it's got elements of the 80s. I mean, they're going to look kind of like the 80s because it's in the 80s or whatever, and they aren't trying to necessarily set it in a different time. But I can see that maybe, I don't know if there's a conscious decision on, I guess Catherine Bigelow was the writer and director, I believe, of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was a conscious decision. They came out around the same time, so I don't know how much one knew about the other or not. How much she knew about the Lost Boys or the script or anything. So, but yeah, there definitely was a sort of juxtaposition there versus very full on 80s MTV versus smooth sort of neo noir, not leaning into the 80s. So, but you can still make comparisons to both.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to compare for sure.
Yeah. Or maybe not teenagers. I don't know if these are supposed to be 20-somethings.
Yeah,
they were kind of supposed to be, teenagers and 20-somethings and Lost Boys, and the same ages, basically, and the same sort of concept of just young vampires.
I feel like the Lost Boys was more like, here's a bunch of, say, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, whereas this one feels more like late teens, early 20s. Because and also you kind of mix in, isn't there like a little kid in this one that's supposedly the oldest of them all?
Yeah.
And then you've got, the older guy, the older vampire, God, I'm blanking on his name, Lance Henriksen. So you got a different mix here, but you can see that it's a similar.
Yeah. Plus, and you have somebody coming into it who's brought into it, sort of not necessarily against. Well, it's very similar to the Lost Boys, the way the main protagonist in here is brought into the vampire life, I guess you could say.
Almost kind of trips and falls in accidentally because he's in love with a chick, and then all of a sudden here he is.
Yeah. That part is very much, like I said, I don't know how much they knew of each other's scripts or whatever. But yeah, that part of it is spot on to each other as far as the love interest being what drags the other person into that vampire life.
Yeah, and just along with the theme of vampires and the Sucky Summer and everything, you're in that time period where there really was a resurgence of vampire films here, at least in the States, because you had Fright Night, Once Bitten, Vamp, The Lost Boys, The Monster Squad even. I know that's not exactly directly vampires, but obviously Dracula plays a big part. And there was a handful of other ones. So, like, you're really kind of in the new wave of vampire flicks at this time period, right?
Yeah, and that's a good way. That's a good way to put it too. The new wave of it, because you're talking about '80s, new wave. It's queuing in there, and then also the fact that they were all sort of not subverting, but just directly leaving behind the Gothic element for the most part, and putting them in contemporary time. Except maybe for the case of Monster Squad, which kind of skirts both of them. Right, there's a little bit of Gothic and contemporary in the Monster Squad, but all of those really deal with bringing them all into the vampires into the modern age.
Yeah.
More so than probably the other time period before it, because 70s, you still had a lot of Gothic, like the movie we did not too long ago, the Andy Warhol's Dracula or Blood for Dracula, it was still going into the Gothic.
Yeah, and just about everything Hammer did throughout the 60s and into the 70s, same thing, right? It was the Gothic type stuff. So, I remember we talked about that when we did the Lost Boys too, about how like, it's almost like they tried to sex it up a little bit during this time period. Maybe that was just a sign of the times.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it was cool. It was good to, I love the traditional Gothic setting of Dracula and other, vampire movies. Any contemporary movie that comes out that sets it in a Gothic style, I love that too. But it was good. It was refreshing at that time to see them do something different with the vampires.
Well, this released, had some, I wouldn't necessarily say this was a wide release, but it did play in, at least that opening weekend of October the 2nd through the 4th of 1987, it played in about 262 theaters. So not a lot of screens, but big enough to rank. But I've got the box office that weekend, so I'll go ahead and run through it so you can see what this thing was up against. Near Dark opened, and it only made a little over $635,000 that weekend for De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, DEG. Weren't they the same ones that made Maximum Overdrive? Pretty sure. DEG made that. Yeah.
So DEG.
So there's the connection there. But it's opened up at number 13. So I'll give you the rest of the top 10 that particular weekend. Number 10, No Way Out. Number 9, La Bamba. One of Will's favorites there, since he brings it up every once in a while. It's too bad he's not here for start singing the song. Number 8, it opened up Big Shots, opening up that weekend. Number 7, The Pickup Artist. Number 6, there you go, Donnie, Hellraiser.
God damn it!
It's the first one though. It's the first one.
Yeah.
But it was in its third week, so it was still doing pretty well. Number 5, Dirty Dancing. That's for you, Smoke.
Oh yeah.
Number 5, I can see you now.
Yeah.
I can see you now in '87 with your ticket in hand. Dirty Dancing.
Now, I'll guess no.
Yeah, but I see you more of as a La Bamba guy. Let's be honest. Number 4, Stakeout. Number 3, The Principal. Number 2, in its opening weekend, Like Father, Like Son. And then number 1 in its third week, still raking up, Fatal Attraction. That was the big one in the theaters at that time. So
yeah, I thought it for sure was going to be Cop and a Half.
yeah, no, I don't think that was floating around. Zombie High was out. It opened up the same exact. It opened up the same exact weekend.
It did gangbusters at the box office, right?
Yeah, no, it did not. It only made $12,000, which I'm sure was probably the catering budget on that movie. So, by the way, The Princess Bride was still floating around, and this weekend too, but it just wasn't in the top 10. But yeah, there you go. So no like huge releases, but you are in that slower time of the year. You're after the summer, kids are back in school. It's October, so you're kind of ramping up to that Halloween, stuff that's coming out. So you did have a couple good horror movies there floating around. Nothing crazy. This one was, like Smoke mentioned a second ago, it was directed and written by Catherine Bigelow, who went on to, I'd say, arguably much bigger things with the Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, Strange Days, stuff like that. She hasn't done much in the last, at least as far as directing. She hasn't directed anything other than a short film since she made Detroit back in 2017. So it's been a minute since she directed anything, but she's still doing her thing here and there. And it was also written by Eric Red. He got a writing credit as well with Catherine Bigelow. And it stars Adrian Pasdar as Caleb, Jenny Wright as May, Lance Henriksen as Jesse Hooker, Bill Paxton as Severin. Couple other ones there. You've got Diamondback. Remember, that was Lance Hendrickson's girlfriend in the movie. That was played by Jeanette Goldstein. And then you have, I think Homer was the kid, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It was the kid vampire. Yeah. That was played by Joshua John Miller. So those are your main players. Of course, the dad, too, Loy Colton, Caleb's dad, that was played by Tim Thomerson. So he's a recognizable character actor, right? And there's a couple other ones in there, like recognizable faces, like Troy Evans, the guy that was like the plainclothes cop at the bus station. You've seen that dude in 1,000 movies and stuff. So a couple other faces, but yeah, that's your main cast right there. Of course, this movie is rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes, and on IMDb it's listed just as a horror. So spoiler alert, it's a horror movie. Although, it's definitely a horror movie, but, there's some elements of other things in this movie, I believe. It kind of has a, like you were talking about, Smoke, it has a different vibe to it. It definitely feels like something that's more of a cult movie than it is like a main horror release, right?
Yeah. It's like I said, to me, it's kind of like vampires thrown into a neo-Western.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I just happen to have it pulled up in the background here. The Wikipedia listing for this movie does have it, or does describe it as an American neo-Western horror film. Oh. So there you go.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I hopped over to audible.com and I just typed in Near Dark to see what would come up. And nothing directly to this movie, obviously, but there's a bunch of titles on there called Near Dark. Not sure if, well, there actually is one that has something, at least one here that I see that has something to do with vampires. And that's Near Dark, Sam Harlan, Vampire Hunter, Book 5. So, Donnie, there's at least 4 books you need to read before you get to this one. If you're,
I'm good.
If you're looking at the series, there's at least 4 more. That's by Kevin Lee Swaim, and that one is just over 9 hours long. See, it's not even a long listen, dude. 9 hours,
no,
not too bad.
No, I'm out.
You've got Near Dark, the Scott Horvath series. Oh, this is even better, Donnie. This is book 19, so there's only 18 books you need to read.
Yeah, that's just not happening.
Yeah, hey, maybe we need to do a side thing and do All American Spook Show book reviews or something.
You know how awesome it would be. You know how awesome it would be if we just had a series called Reading with Donnie.
Shit.
And it's just him just complaining that we made him read something. He didn't actually read it. He's just bitching at the thought of having to read it. I think it'd be good. There's something there. We'll have to run with it. Maybe that's another YouTube series. But yeah, anyways. Any of that stuff floats your boat. And I got, just typing in Near Dark, I got 34 results on Audible. So you get the point. You can type in just about anything. We've proved that in the past, right, Donnie? And you'll find something.
Oh, yeah.
You'll find something. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. So let me hop back over to IMDb and click on plot summary. Where are you? To see what comes up. Let's see if we got a long one for Donnie, because we really need to explain this one. And we got one. It's not crazy long, but it's long enough. Short one than the larger one. A small-town farmer's son reluctantly joins a traveling group of vampires after he is bitten by a beautiful drifter. See, that's already wrong, right? Because they never say vampires, right? So, maybe it's just a group of like-minded blood lovers, maybe that's appropriate. This one was contributed by Claudio Carvola from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Boy, whoever this is, they've really contributed. Like every time we read one of these things, it's almost always Claudio Carvalho from Rio de. It's just weird. Here we go. In Phoenix, the young cowboy Caleb Colton meets the beautiful May late night in town, and she asks for a ride to her trailer. It is near dawn, and Caleb brings May that is in a hurry. He asks for a kiss, and she bites him on the neck. Caleb's truck does not start, and he walks home. However, when the sunlight hits him close to his farm, he starts to burn. His father, Loy Colton, and his sister, Sarah, witness a van that appears out of the blue and kidnaps Caleb. He is introduced to May's family, the leader, Jesse Hooker, his mate, Diamondback, the cruel Severin, and the boy, Homer. In common, all of them are predator creatures of night that need blood to survive. See, that's an appropriate description. However, Caleb refuses to kill, and May gives her own blood to help keep him alive. Meanwhile, Loy and Sarah are looking for Caleb. When they meet each other in a motel, Caleb has to choose between his beloved family or his love for May. So that's a pretty good description of what's going on here, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting setup, as far as like, and we'll get to the end and what kind of happens towards the that third act of the movie here in a minute. But it's an interesting setup as far as like they never say the word vampire, right? And a lot of your regular vampire things aren't necessarily present here, right?
Yeah. And if we're again making the comparison to the similar movie, that came out in '87, of course, The Lost Boys, that they blasted in that one, such as Corey Haim talking to his brother, like, my own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire.
Yeah, that and the setup of everything like that.
Grandpa talking about Santa Carla crawling with vampires.
Yeah, and in that one they really bring it home with the garlic and the steaks and just all your regular vampire traditions and tropes, right? This one
really,
is the opposite.
Oh,
I was
it is the opposite. The only thing they do bring up is what the daylight obviously harms and can kill them.
Yeah.
And that fact that they're old, that all of them are at various stages of it. They talk about some of, when they were bitten or whatever, their time frame and whatnot. And, drinking blood. But I mean, that's the only mentions really. There's, the other tropes aren't.
Really, the two things are the two dead giveaways as to whether you're on the fence, right? Is the fact that they have to drink blood to survive, and the fact that when they're in the sun they start burning. Like other than that, because you don't see anything get staked or burnt with garlic or holy water or anything like that in this.
No,
I love when he meets Caleb, when he meets May at the beginning and like she's standing there eating the ice cream or whatever. He says, he says, can I have a bite or something? She's like, bite? And then something about, I'm dying to try it or something. She's like, dying? And then and then something like, I'll be here. He sees a star or something in the sky. I'll be here in 1 billion years when the starlight falls or fails or whatever. Like, it's real subtle vampire shit here, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say it without coming right out. One other thing,
I guess that you can that they have versus humans is they do have the superhuman powers slightly, I guess, right? You see that more in the end, I guess. But the one scene in the bar that we'll get to, I guess that's another sort of giveaway as far as them being more than human, even though they don't call them vampires.
I do think it makes it unique, and it's an interesting choice to never say it, never
mention it.
Yeah, and fangs too, right? When that's another one, right? Like they don't have fangs, right?
Or if they do, you never see them.
True.
Yeah. I remember seeing them like burying the fangs like they do in a lot of movies, including Lost Boys, of course.
You do kind of see them bare their teeth, but not like in a vampire-ish way and not with fangs and everything. You kind of see them bite and stuff. So you almost wonder whether they do in this, That's the other thing too that I think it was kind of lacking in my opinion was there is some gore, but there needed to be more gore, I think. It needed to be a little bit more visceral and bloody, I think.
Yeah, I could definitely have used that. I mean, and what comes to mind, the best, probably the bar scene really comes to mind as a good scene for that went certain places, but could have went maybe more there too.
Yeah. And just like, it's like they almost wanted to go, I mean, it's rated R, and I'd say most of that is just for language and, the amount of violence you do get. But it just seems like they didn't. It was like there was a line they wouldn't cross. They would only go so far. So I mean, not that that's a bad thing. I'm not necessarily going to hold it against it too much. I just wish that there had been a little bit more throughout because I think some of the scenes in there would have been more satisfying if it had been there. You know.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents. Caleb meets May. He's instantly, in love with her, so to speak, and then they start making out, and then she bites him. And then now this is another thing that I think is a little different than your normal vampire setup, right? Is that like she bites him, and then he almost instantly turns into a vampire, right? Like it's almost like he gets bit, and he's like, ow, and he's kind of his car won't start, and then he gets out and instantly starts like smoking. Like
his car turned into a vampire too.
Yeah,
because his car won't start.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Damn it! It's an interesting way to turn somebody that is honestly, and so maybe there was some explanation somewhere along the way that I didn't catch. So she bites him, and he almost instantly turns into a vampire. Yeah. Did she do something different to him than she did than any of them did to anyone else throughout the movie? Otherwise, would there be a bunch of vampires around?
Because all the other ones they kill, right? Everybody gets killed. I guess they drain them completely until they die. He's the only one that does get turned, so he's the only one you got to go on as far as, I guess, what happens when they, like how quick you turn, or unless everybody's supposed to be, different depending on the person or whatever. But
that's a good point. I didn't really catch that.
What's the normal vampire trope? The average trope is you get bitten, and then there's some exchange of blood, correct?
Yeah, generally you have to feed from them, right? I mean, not all the time, but most of the time they bite you. You don't become a vampire instantly right then, but they maybe feed off you. But if they want you to become a vampire, then you would have to drink from them. Like
you have to either drink their blood or their blood would have to mix with yours.
Like that, I believe.
Yeah, and then Dracula.
Yeah, and Dracula, and of course.
So right away, it's different there. Where like she just kind of bites him on the neck and then instantly. But meanwhile, the rest of the movie, I think that's the other thing too. When I was talking about the gore, is that like whenever they do feed on people, it doesn't seem like it's as nasty as it should be. It's like, hey, like the truck driver, hey,
I'm sorry, what?
Hey, and then like just you don't see it happen. You never see him take a bite. It's just kind of hidden.
You do though.
Do you really ever see teeth sink in the skin?
You never see it, but I mean, she's like munching on his neck. What else is she doing though?
She's just loving on him.
Blah, 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 blah.
I love you. No, I mean, like, I'm just saying that, like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, usually in a vampire movie, you get the, like somebody's getting bit, man, they're going to town on them, like tearing their throat up or visually sucking the life right out of them. This seems more like they just kind of latch onto their neck, drink for a second, and then that dude's dead. Like, it didn't even seem like there was enough time that would pass to suck somebody dry kind of thing. It's just like, well, I got enough out of him. He's fucked.
And you get some reality in there too, and with the humor, like when Bill Paxton, in the bar grabs the guy's neck, he's gonna bite it, and he's like, "I hate it when they don't shave."
Yeah. He stinks or something. Yeah. Right there, the one that I pointed out, the truck driver one. That one was kind of weird to me too. That like, remember, the whole point is she's trying to get Caleb to. Now he's full vampire. He needs to eat, but he won't kill. So he's hesitant to take out the truck driver. He gets out and just starts yakking. Truck driver comes out to check on him. May just like, huh? You gonna do it? Yeah. And then he won't do it. So then she bites him. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, let him just feed on the guy.
Yeah.
But apparently that's not the way this works.
I guess he's still. Oh yeah, because they don't really say. But the next scene you see him feeding off of her because she gorged herself on the truck driver, and then now he's feeding off of her. But they don't say why. I guess he's so sweet. Not only does he not want to kill them, that after they're dead, he doesn't want to drink the blood from them either.
Basically, right in this movie, he only drinks from her. Correct?
Yeah.
I don't think he ever drinks from anyone else through the entirety of the movie. Just another one of those weird, interesting twists that I noticed throughout.
I wonder if it might be because they want him to be. I mean, he's supposed to be that sort of the heroic character of the more like his moral fortitude against the vampire thing of not killing. Is he not going to kill, but he's not going to feed off of ones that they killed for him either. I guess I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
Then we get to I think my favorite scene of the movie is, and you mentioned a second ago, Smoke, and that's the bar scene.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the most vampirish scene really that you get in this. Like you kind of see them at their full strength of like they're just going to go up there and just fuck all these people up, and there ain't nothing they can do about it. You know?
Yeah, and it's like toying with them, like
Playing
in the
with
way
food.
that it's sort of, I mean, again, another comparison. Although I think this scene is better, but the comparison is the Lost Boys with the tree and the beach goers that they attack.
Yeah,
You know,
scene, yeah.
I think this is the case where this movie does shine better, and this scene is two similar scenes of them toying with and killing their prey.
Yep.
But handled better, I think, in Near Dark than it was in Lost Boys.
It's a good comparison, absolutely. And this is done far better. And I think it's because it's more drawn out and you see more. Because remember, in that one, it kind of happens really fast. I mean, you see some stuff go down, but it's like wham, wham, wham. You know, they just kind of move faster than you can see them moving, and you just know that they're just laying waste to everybody, but they don't dive in. This one's like, they're just fucking with these people because they can. But it ultimately breaks down because Caleb still won't eat. He has a chance to finally feed on a guy, and then he lets the guy go. And that's what basically screws the group for the rest of the movie, right? Because now the cops are on them. They've got a description, they've got a witness, and now that leads them to they're hiding in a motel, and then they have a shootout with the cops. So that's a pretty good scene too, right?
Yeah. That kind of definitely plays into the neo-Western aspect of it. You know, the shootout.
Yeah, showdown at the OK Corral kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then Caleb, who I guess feels bad that he's not feeding, he's not holding up his end. He's the one that runs out of the hotel with like the blanket on as he's catching fire, gets the van, smashes it in the side of the room, so they're all able to get into the van and get out of there. So he kind of
buys himself some time a little bit.
He earns their respect. So they're they're kind of still hiding place to place, car to car. They end up in another motel, and then wouldn't you know it, Caleb's family is staying at this exact hotel. I think that does lend a pretty good. It raises the stakes a little bit in this movie. Is that this dude is hesitant about this lifestyle, so to speak. He doesn't want to be a vampire, but here he is, and he still is grounded in the fact that he loves his family. So it raises the stakes because all these other vampires don't give a shit. They don't care about his family or anything, So like, it raises the stakes of the movie. Like, oh shit, you want to see, at the least, you want to see his little sister survive, right? So at that point, I think your rooting interest as a viewer is changed from like, hey, you're kind of rooting for this rugged group of vampires to, oh shit, fuck them, they're trying to kill this little girl.
Yeah. That was a good bit of writing, I guess, in there too, because they kind of have you sort of identifying a little bit with the vampires, like they're cool and they're doing all this stuff and all this whatever, and then here comes the part though where they don't want you to be cool with them. How do we get to turn it around on them so that they become the bad guys again? And that's a good plot element there.
Yeah. So, but eventually, fast forward to the family. They have this showdown with the family, Caleb and his family, and the vampires and everything. And he manages to get his family out of there. They go back home, and his dad gives him a blood transfusion that cures him. It cures him of vampirism. So. This is interesting, right? This is a twist we haven't seen, or I don't recall seeing in anything else. Maybe there's something.
Wait, there was something recently, wasn't it? No.
Yeah, it was Bram Stoker's.
Yes, that's
Dracula.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, that'll be next week. We talk about Bram Stoker's. Now that's a little bit different, though. I feel this is is straight up like
maybe.
This is straight up like because in that one, we'll get into that next week. They tried but failed, kind of thing, right?
Yes.
This one is like, no, like blood transfusion will fucking cure you. So that's the twist here is that like, hey, I don't want to be a vampire anymore. Fuck it, get a blood transfusion and now you're normal again. So I guess these are different types of vampires. This is like, I guess really that's what it boils down to when we're talking about these different movies, right? Is like maybe the types of vampires they are or whether there's any supernatural aspect to this or not. Maybe that's the question.
Yeah, and at the very least, flipping things around on what can and can't be done as a vampire.
Yeah.
Because even if it is supernatural and they do live hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years or whatever, or that they have a little bit of superhuman powers or this, that, and the other thing there's that element where the things that don't work in other movies do work in this one and vice versa.
I don't know why I just now thought of it, but we didn't talk about it a little bit earlier in the movie where there's the scene where they're all kind of individual, the group, the 4 or 5 vampires, they're all kind of going out on their own. Like, here's how the young kid Homer feeds, and here's how Severin goes and finds a couple of like girls on the side of the road and picks them up and takes them off. The part where it's Jesse and Diamondback, and those two guys basically like hijack the car, or no, three guys, right? They try to take their car or whatever. That was one scene that bothered me because you didn't see how it ended. At least not in the cut. I mean, unless there was some other cut that I didn't see. The cut I saw was just like, oh, we're about to fuck you up. I'm going to rip your face off. And then it just cuts to somebody else and you don't see it happen. So I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to see like a badass, like these dudes go the fuck off and kill these people. Like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm going to rip your face off. And scene.
And it would have been like a Justified type thing. Because, here they're vampires and they're out to make a kill. But then you got people who are, trying to carjack them or something. So it's kind of like they're getting revenge on them. And then, you get cheated out of the payoff.
Yeah. That was the thing. Even like Severin, Bill Paxton's character, picking up those two girls, he just gets in the car and drives away. Now, clearly it's like, well, the viewer is smart enough to know what happens. And we are. Yeah. I get it. But I want to see it. I know how it ends. I want to see it.
Yeah. Now, I'm guessing, again, haven't read any interviews or anything with her. I mean, with Catherine Bigelow, but maybe she was, again, trying to subvert that expectation too. Like,
true.
Generally you would see them get torn to shreds or whatever. But I'm just going to kind of, leave it up to the viewer's imagination. But me personally, I would want to see more. But
yeah, I want to see that. This old guy Jesse, who's clearly like an old badass vampire. I want to see him in action, but not. We don't get to see Yoda vampire go off. You just kind of assume. But they kidnap his little sister Sarah at least 2 or 3 times here in a row. He gets her back, fucking immediately take her again. So they have a couple of big fights here, and then one cool scene was his fight with Severin, because you knew that was going to have to end in an epic way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He hits him with a Mack truck, like a big rig, and all right, I did it. And then he jumps up on the hood, and he's still there, but he's all chewed up, the road rash or whatever. Then of course, because there was the foreshadowing with the truck driver scene earlier about driving with the shifting the gears and jackknifing and all that. That's how it ends. He jackknifes the truck and then it blows up. So Severin's gone, and it kind of has the showdown with the rest of them. Homer and Jesse and Diamondback and all that. And essentially, it ends with like them kind of playing chicken in the middle of the road, right? And Jesse and Diamondback are in the car and they're driving straight for them, but it's blaring daylight, and the sun just basically cooks them, right? And the car catches on fire, it blows up, and that's how they're eventually able to get away. All of them burn except May. Now, what was with the kind of unhealthy obsession with the kid Homer and his sister Sarah?
I think he wanted to be
maybe make her a vampire his own size or something.
Yeah,
his own.
And that's kind of what I assumed and picked up, but it wasn't really fleshed out enough.
Yeah.
I think, it was just kind of like, well, he just kind of got weird about her all of a sudden, and then, and then.
Yeah, I think that's probably something that was something that was more fleshed out, but it got changed for pacing. Maybe. I don't know, because he didn't know it was Caleb's sister when when Homer sees the girl getting was it a soda or getting something out of the machine outside the hotel room or whatever, and then he instantly starts talking. Well, I got watch TV in my room. What did he bring? Because I think he is trying to wants to turn her maybe into a vampire.
It's like
or whatever.
He almost instantly fell in love with her or something, and wants her to be his, right? Kind of is the vibe I got.
Yeah, and he did really obsessed with that,
just out of nowhere.
There's probably other people down the road. You can get away from this situation. You can turn later on, probably. He's going right out to the end,
and that's what ultimately ends him, is that he's kind of going for her and then just runs out in the road and gets burnt to a crisp. And I think he's the only one that actually, that you literally see blow up, right? Like he's burning on the road and then just
bends over and then boom,
it blows up. He's gone. And then the two, Jesse and Diamondback in the car, basically the same thing happens to them, but they're inside the car and the car blows up. So they're all toast except for May. He helps her, and then he takes her back to the farm or whatever, and they give her a blood transfusion, and now she's cured, and they hug, freeze frame, the end, right? That's it. So Near Dark, 1987. Interesting take on things. Another interesting one that we've had so far here in the Sucky Summer. So, Tiana, I guess we'll let you get started first. Ladies first. What are your final thoughts on what you're now? This is Cult Corner, so we're still giving out stars, but we're kind of comparing it to the other cult movies we've done so far. So how does that affect the
Yeah.
rating, or if at all?
I like this one, but definitely not as much as, The Lost Boys or other vampire films. I like it for what it is. It's a lot more slower than other ones, but I enjoy it from the bar scene all the way to the end. It's got some good stuff, but I'm going to give it 2.5 stars.
2.5. All right, Donnie, what do you say?
I think it has a good story. I kind of like what they try to do with it. But I agree with your, you guys, what you mentioned. It could have been bloodier, could have been a little bit more violent. We could have seen more things. That's where it kind of fails, in my opinion. But I still enjoy it. And my rating is basically if it's something I would watch again, it has to be at least 3 stars. This certainly fits a bill here, despite its kind of flaws a little bit. I'm actually gonna go. I think I'm gonna go 3.25.
All right, Professor, what do you say?
Like I said, I've seen this one back since it came out on video, I guess in '88 or so. And I've really enjoyed it back then. And hell, back then, if you asked me that would have been shortly after seeing Lost Boys, and then a year or so later or whatever, seeing Near Dark, I might have even said that I give Near Dark the edge. And that's only because of how at the time this was like a super cult film, under the radar kind of thing. And it was kind of going against the grain of the flashy MTV style edits and cuts and Hollywood glitz and all that stuff. So I probably would have said that I liked it better probably because of that, because it was just more cult at the time. But, with many years of watching it more than a handful of times over those years and everything, I still love it. And it's one of those movies that I can put on and watch after, not saying not all the time, but not a couple of years down the road, I'd watch it like it just as much as I do now. But yeah, now I definitely don't quite put it up there with the Lost Boys now. And having seen both movies many times over the years, I would give the Lost Boys the edge. So I think I'm going to go with a 3.5 for Near Dark. So I still really enjoy it. I think it's a great movie.
And I'm going to echo what you just gave it, 3.5. I mean, I think it's a pretty strong, well put together movie. It's got some interesting takes on the vampire genre, and kind of flips a few things on its ear. It's just I think it would have ranked a little. I probably would have gave it a 4 if it had just been a little bit more gory, or just give me a little bit more. It's violent enough, right? It's not to say that it lacks violence. It doesn't. It's just it just doesn't have that bite. Pardon the pun, that you would want from this type of movie. Like I mentioned a couple of scenes, like, oh, we're about to see it now, and then cut next thing. Well, what the fuck, man? I don't know, just kind of lacks in some ways in that regard. But I think it's a well-written, well-put-together movie. Probably, I didn't look at the budgets. Probably a far damn less budget on this boy than Lost Boys, right? Okay, budget of $5 million. Just out of curiosity, let me look for the budget of Lost Boys real quick. That one had a budget of $8.5 million, so not that much less. I'm surprised by that. But either way, it holds up just as well as far as the look of it. I think, considering this was made by DEG versus Warner Brothers or whatever it was, right, for Lost Boys. So there's that. You can see that it's not quite as good production value as that, but it's not a massive shift in production value. So
yeah, I think she did a good job with maybe having that little bit lesser budget than the Lost Boys had, but it turned that around by making it a low key neo-western, neo-noir, set out in the desert type thing, where you don't need a whole bunch of set locations that are elaborate or elaborate editing and effects and all this stuff. You just kind of do it low key. And I think this would make a good double feature with the Lost Boys, because there's juxtaposition there. They're different movies, similar but very different.
And remember, Lost Boys is set in the fictional town in California. This one is got a good setting because it's set in like the West. It's set out like Oklahoma, Texas, like out in the desert or something, desert adjacent town, right? So like you get a different vibe, different feel because of the setting. So I think they nailed it in that regard. Just I don't know, it just needed a little bit more punch, and I would have went higher. But still, it's a great movie. highly recommend it. Like Smoke said, it probably would be a good double feature with the Lost Boys. So,
one thing we didn't mention yet too was the soundtrack. It's Tangerine Dream soundtrack. Again, a Tangerine Dream is a band that's very much of the 70s and 80s. But, their stuff, generally their soundtracks aren't like in your face. Lost Boys is in your face because you got all kinds of different rock songs and things coming at you, So, but whereas this one it's synth by, synth, very 80s, but very low key synth because it's Tangerine Dream. Things like their soundtracks are like Risky Business or Legend or whatever. It's, not in your face. It's there to enhance the backgrounds. And it does a good job of that. But again, very different than the Lost Boys, which is in your face, which is fine for that movie.
Yeah, it has a great soundtrack, which definitely adds to the vibe and the, of the flick for sure. Well, we don't, this is Cult Corner, so we don't do the kill count. We don't do the gore score and all that jazz. But we do, Donnie.
Donnie, where's the Cult Connections? Come out and play.
Go ahead and go for it, Donnie. What's the?
Yeah, right, man. So with
let me cut that off. I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By design.
No.
All right. So on the cast side, we've got Lance Henriksen, who played Jesse. He also was in Hellraiser Hellworld. We covered that a while back. I can't say a while back. That was here recently, wasn't it? Wasn't that long ago.
Which one? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Hellraiser Hellworld.
I think it was confused. On part 3, I forget.
Hellraiser 8 or something. I still have to get my rating for that. I think
they all blur together because it's some hellscape.
Yeah. The Hellraiser Scape, the Hellscape.
Hellworld, that was only like a handful of episodes ago. It was episode 211.
Oh, okay. Well, it just seems like such a long time ago.
Yeah, it seems like it was 10 years ago, but it was like a month ago. Yeah.
Lance Henriksen. We also got Roger Aaron Brown, who played the truck driver. He also was in a Spookshow episode when we did Cobra on Cannon Fodder. And I don't know if you guys realize this, maybe you did while you were watching it, but James LaGrosse, he was the bar patron, I guess the guy with the pool stick that got thrown. Well, he jumped out of the window and then ran away. Anyway, he was in Phantasm 2. We just covered that a couple of episodes
funny you
ago.
mentioned that because he did look kind of vaguely familiar, not like in a major way, but like I've seen that guy before kind of way.
Yeah. So that's the cast side, and on the crew side, we've got cinematographer Adam Greenberg, and this could not be any more of two opposite ends of the spectrum. But he was in a past Spook Show episode, 10 to Midnight, and also Snakes on a Plane.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was back in, 10 to Midnight was actually one of the first, it may have been the first unofficial Cannon Fodder.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We retroactively threw that in Cannon Fodder, but that was before Cannon Fodder. That was one of the early seeds of Cannon Fodder.
Yeah.
The second one. Yeah.
And then Snakes on a Plane was when we did the Spook Show Summer Disaster last summer.
Last summer, yeah. Well, there you go. I'm surprised there's no DEG connections like, say, Maximum Overdrive or anything else there, but who knows, the lineage of production there. They distributed it, but it was actually produced by FM Entertainment. So I don't know how connected that is to everything else. But
I actually when I do the Crypt connections, Cult connections, and Canon connections, we really just connect the current movie episode to any cast or crew, not really any distributors.
Yeah, well, I just meant that maybe there was someone involved on the production side that might have been but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the latest Cult Corner. Next week, we mentioned it earlier. We're going to be sticking with the Sucky Summer, obviously, but we're getting back to the normal horror rotation, and we're going to go with Will's pick. So we're going to see if he's actually here for it next week or not. But he chose Bram Stoker's Dracula. What year was that? 92, I believe, off the top of my head.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah. So a classic. Bona fide classic, in my opinion. One of my favorites. I don't think I'm spoiling much there to let that one out of the bag. I think, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I had it in my top 13 horror movies of all time back Smoke, you may remember we did that years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. We had that YouTube series.
Yeah.
It's still up there on our YouTube channel. We each individually, we had a countdown to Halloween, and we gave our like top 13 horror movies or something. So I'm pretty sure I had Bram Stoker's Dracula in there a few years ago. So we'll see if it still kind of places there next week. So onward and upward here with the Sucky Summer. We got lots of stuff planned, and you'll find out every week what we're going to be doing. And like we said off the top, go to aaspookshow.com. Go check out our YouTube page. We're Grindhouse Gutter, Video Vortex are involved in the Sucky Summer. Also, Hammer Horror and Order is still there. Become a patron at patreon.com/aaspookshow, and we appreciate that. So for Will, could be with us, Donnie, Tiana, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are from the All American Spook Show, and we will talk to you next week.